Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the weekly comic book roundup. We have ourselves another small roundup again this week. Due to some delays, the shop I frequent had not yet received their Marvel shipment by the time I got there, and so we'll be getting this week's Marvel books next week, as well as hopefully next week's Marvel books as well. And concerning next week's roundup, it will be delayed until Friday evening at the earliest, Saturday evening at the latest. But yeah, so all we got is this week's DC books, and I opted to kind of split up into two videos just because have a smaller amount of stuff to work with, so per video. So let's dive in, shall we? Starting with Batman Urban Legends number 9. I really like this cover. It kind of sucks that you can't see it too well, but yeah, it's got Azrael on it. Beautifully done. Beautifully done. So we've got 4 stories. We got part 2 of Disinformation Campaign, which is part of Fear State, featuring and focuses on Batwoman. Next we have Tweedledum and Tweedledee in Down the Rabbit Hole, part 1 of 2, or 3, part 1 of 3. Azrael in Dark Night of the Soul, part 2 of 3, and The Outsiders in The Fearful, part 2 of 2. So kicking things off, we've got Disinformation Campaign, part 2. So where we left off in this information campaign, Batwoman was looking into the veracity of a video of Batgirl Cassandra Cain seemingly murdering members of Magistrate Peacekeepers. She found Cassandra. Cassandra explained that it wasn't her, and something's going on, and that was when Batwoman discovered that Seer, well, 1, Seer exists, and 2, apparently Seer knows who all the members of the Bat family really are, but doesn't seem to care. And Seer had sent peacekeepers to Kate Kane's apartment, where her sister, Beth Kane, formerly the villain Red Alice, was waiting for her sister to return. But Beth and Kate took down the peacekeepers. It seemed like Beth was maybe potentially relapsing into being Red Alice, and they realized they needed to do something, and sadly, as Kate and Beth Kane, there was nothing they could do. Hell, as Batwoman, there was little that could be done. But Red Alice, she could help. So we begin with a flashback to the Kane girls' childhood. They're playing the Looking Glass game. The idea is about the two people playing being in sync with each other on the inside. And so, in the present, Beth, as Red Alice, goes to the Church of Crime, basically to get it, with the idea of sending the church after Seer. First, however, she does have to deal with who's taken over in Red Alice's absence. We also have a brief flashback to Kate and Beth working out the plan, and Kate wanting to make sure that her sister is okay doing this. But Red Alice makes her plan known to the Church of Crime, but, well, Seer already made a deal with them to turn over, well, her. Peacekeepers show up, Then Batwoman shows up, and so Batwoman and Red Alice deal with the peacekeepers. But Beth has a for a moment, Red Alice becomes a little more dominant for Beth, and she has to she has to face that. And it's kind of makes for a merging moment, I guess would be a good way to put it. But the sisters take down the peacekeepers, and they discover that Sears' background, when Sears' background fades briefly, they see that it seems to be in Simon Saint's airship. And so afterwards, Kate informs Nightwing and Oracle what they've learned, which backs up information, a lead they had. And Kate and Beth talk about Beth, and you kind of get the idea that Beth has had a breakthrough in her recovery, and that is where the story ends. Which it's a nice little story. Batwoman is a member of the Bat family that I honestly feel is horribly underutilized, and I do hope that, I don't know, after Fear State maybe someone at DC decides, hey, you know what, we can use Batwoman a lot more often. One of the things I actually really kind of liked reading through the first volume of Batman: The Rebirth was actually seeing Batwoman, as a part of the Bat family. It was kind of nice. But anyway, moving on to our next story, Down the Rabbit Hole, featuring Tweedledee and Tweedledum. So we start off with a flashback to one of the various caves Tweedledee and Tweedledum have run. However, in the present, Dum's having issues. He gets it. His car is parked in the wrong spot. He gets to the meter too late to put more money in. Ticket's already printed out. And he tries to offer the meter maid the money, but she goes, no. Call the number on there, and then, go from there. But March Harriet pops up. Apparently Batman is watching, and lets Oracle know what's going on, advises send some drones to keep an eye on Tweedledee and Tweedledum, to make sure that they're not planning anything, especially if March Hare just showed up. But so apparently they have Tweedledee and Tweedledum have their own place, and it's even explained that and Harriet is told she can, she needs someplace to crash for a few days, she can crash there. But Dee's got some issues. He doesn't seem to be doing too well, and so. And Harriet suggests maybe get Dee some medicine. So Dum goes to a pharmacy, but with Dee trying to explain his brother's sick, he needs medicine, and he'll happily, but he doesn't have a prescription, so they want urgent care, but no ID, no insurance. They can't get a prescription, so no prescription. So Dum tries calling an insurance company to sign up for insurance, but it's not yet open enrollment. And then he goes into Dee's room and finds Dee on the floor, seemingly dead. And knowing he's going to have to call the police, probably. And that is where part 1 ends. Next up, we've got Dark Night of the Soul, Part 2 of 3, featuring Azrael. Where we left off, Azrael, Jean-Paul Valley, was back in Gotham. In fact, he was by day working at a hospice. By night, he was out and about again as Azrael. However, Batman had become aware of this and was paid a visit to basically say, hey, you're not leaving bodies in my town. And Azrael says, no, I absolutely am not. I'm doing things your way. Might get a little rough. I had a run-in with a crime boss last night. He died of his own hand. I didn't cause him to die. I did not cause his death. I tried to stop it. He died, but yeah. Well, one of the patients at the hospice passes. He hasn't been taking his pills, but that night, Jean-Paul is trying to find, as Azrael, he's trying to find a sign because he saw the crime boss walk out of the morgue. So he starts asking questions. Finds the crime boss dead. Not just looking dead, but being dead. Some further digging, and he gets a lead. A church. And so, Azrael heads there. But he's being watched by a robed figure holding a halberd. There's a scientist there. Used to work for both Wayne Tech and Langstrom Industries. But he apparently knows of the Lazarus Pits. Apparently, both Wayne Tech and Langstrom Industries insisted said pits are a myth and laughed him out of the building. But he's been synthesizing. He managed to get a sample of the Lazarus Pit of the waters of the Lazarus Pit. He's been synthesizing it, making an artificial version, which seems suspiciously similar to the Lazarus resin being used in Task Force Z. But the doctor explains that it only works for about a couple hours. But Bullet Tooth, the mobster, the gangster in question, he believed in it and kept injecting himself and his friends. Put too much faith in it. And the scientist also, blind faith is not a good thing to have. But Azrael begins to disagree. However, the robed figure who'd been watching him appears and removes the scientist's head from the rest of his body with her halberd, stating that the scientist was no agent of heaven, and that neither, it would seem, is Azrael. Read us for our finals. So far, it's an interesting story. We get confirmation that also that this takes place before the events of Arkham City. So I imagine that Part 3 will probably kind of set up where Azrael's at at the beginning of Arkham City number 2. Our final story is Part 2 of the Fearful, featuring the Outsiders. So in Part 1, 35 years in the future, the Duke Thomas, the Signal, sent back the future version of Black Lightning. He was supposed to go further back into the past, but he undershot and ended up in what is now the present. And but as he is, bound, as he's a lightning form bound to Soul Keeper, or Soul Taker, he got this. Jefferson and the Sword were sent back to stop the Fearful. The Fearful being a man who's exposed to 2 separate versions of fear toxin. The 2 different versions interacted and in his case caused a very strange reaction, which he basically causes, or which he allows him to, give off the fear toxin. So in the future, the Fearful is torturing Duke, but Duke's confident, you know, explaining that, you know, the whole any minute, any second now, the entire time is going to change around them. All the fear, all the suffering, it's all going to end just like that. And he even adds that, you know, he's, because of the mystical wars on his arm, he's starting to get memories. He suddenly has new memories that weren't there previously, that don't match with everything else. So times have changed. In the present, Red Robin has saved the Outsiders from being dosed with fear toxin. He puts a rebreather on the Signal and goes after the Fearful, and explains that he left some additional rebreathers for the rest of the Outsiders. So one gets put on Katana, one gets put on Black Lightning, but sadly, Red Robin lost the Fearful, so he picks back up with Clown Hunter, whom he's working with, and then the Outsiders join them, and so he's given the lowdown on what's going on, and turns out that Scarecrow is using places around in and near Gotham as test sites for new versions of fear toxin. A gas leak at a grocery store experienced a gas leak in the produce section. A postal annex where a mail carrier 2 weeks from retirement decided to shoot up the place instead. It's explained their design is like copycats, imitations, but Red Robin thinks that it's Scarecrow turning the city and its outskirts into living laboratories, where he's testing worse things than just fear toxin on them. But so they go after the Fearful. First, Katana finds him, but in the subway, Scarecrow's there as well. Fearful runs from Scarecrow, and Katana deals with Scarecrow. Black Lightning gets him, tries to get him to get the Fearful to go a specific way, which works out. And meanwhile, the Signal and Clown Hunter are waiting to do their part of the plan. But the future version of Pierce manages to get the Fearful where it needed to go. Rex Mason once again turns himself into a building, and Red Robin and the Signal basically inject the Fearful with adrenaline. So he burns the fear toxin out. Rex Mason turns it into something. Is able to turn it into something different and expel it into the Gotham skies so that it doesn't hurt, so that it doesn't damage anyone. Also, Rex managed to get a full molecular breakdown of Scarecrow's fear toxins, and so there won't be any repeats. But so yeah, the Fearful's brought down. However, in a twist, while the future is no longer a future fear state, it's still not good. Apparently, now Black Lightning is flesh and blood again. Hasn't aged a day in over 30 years. And there's some massive creature coming towards the Outsiders, claiming the Earth to be theirs in the future, and as well as the future, and begging the question: what will the final words of humanity be? To which Duke simply states, "You already know." And that is where the story ends. It was a fun outsider story. I kind of like the idea that, yeah, the future got, one bad alternate future got wiped out, but there's still others. It actually kind of makes me think of the, I believe it was Wolverine the X-Men ended. They managed to stop the Days of Future Past light future, only to replace it with Age of Apocalypse, which sadly they didn't get to really go into. So yeah. Anyway, moving on to the next book, we've got I Am Batman, number 3. Where we left off, Batman, Jace Fox, had gone after some of the militia goons in Gotham, tricking them into arranging a meet, pretending to be Seer, dealing with a bunch of them. However, Seer got a look at the lower part of his face during this, and one of the militia kids is currently in prison, having killed the vigilante Anarchy. And at the behest of Police Commissioner Renee Montoya, that kid is about to be represented by Jace's mother. So we get some backstory about the fact that how Jace is able to deal with pain and high amounts of it, kind of just spreading it out from like the point where he gets hit the entirety of his body. So, but sadly he's been slacking at his job at Wayne Enterprises, and his father thinks he's backsliding into his old ways, which is to Jace is kind of hurtful that it's so easy for his father to think that. Now he just feels like he needs to root himself even more. At the Gotham City Juvenile Detention Facility, Detectives Walker and Chubb bring Tanya Fox to meet with her client. And he explains that Seer told him he was special. And that the masks, the magistrate, they're evil, they're part of a hidden agenda. And he's one of the ones who has to stop the hidden agenda. However, more people from the let's see, what did they actually call themselves? The Moral Authority. They attacked the detention center. The idea, the guards figure it's to break the kid out. We get some rundowns as to who these members were. One was a real estate broker who lost everything in a market crash. Another used to sell insurance but got fired during a consolidation. Another worked at an online shopping center making less than minimum wage. Regular ordinary people made to feel unimportant their entire lives. Then Seer gave them something to fear, something to fight. They're Seer's army, and now they feel special. But so Chubb and Whitaker, decided they've got to somehow get a message to the GCPD about what's going on, but they've also got to defend the place. So. But Tanya Fox is brought at walkie by Chubb, and basically said, "Hey, if I tell you to do something on this, just do it." She tells Fox what's going on as well, of course, but yeah. Anyway, Jace learns that that Arcanine, the man responsible for causing a riot in Alleytown, and that he had been going after for trafficking in the previous miniseries, the next Batman Second Son, has been extradited from Vietnam. But he's then informed of the well, first off, one of the members of the Moral Authority calls out Batman, and then Jace is informed that his mother is at the detention center that the Moral Authority is attacking. But it's a siege. But before they launch an RPG into the building, Batman shows up, makes quick work of the Moral Authority goons, and then deals with King, the one who called him out. And King's able to take a beating, but, well, when he's between Jace Fox and his mother, he doesn't stand a chance. But he tells King to tell Seer to shut the whole thing down, and, well, Seer basically hacks King's phone and explains that she's right there, giving him a map. Even after all, Seer thinks he's special. And then he goes out into the building to make sure his mother's okay. During everything, one of the Moral Authority guys made it to the interrogation room she was in, wielding a gun. He didn't care if her client made it out or not. They could both die. It was fine by him. And Tanya Fox shot him. Elsewhere, however, on Simon Tate's airship, it turns out that Tyler Arcanine is an associate of Saint's who potentially knows some things about Saint that Saint would prefer to keep hidden. However, Saint's associate Victor, well, he explains that he always plans ahead and that when he handles things, they remain handled. As GCPD discovers Tyler Arcanine in his cell, having slit his wrists. And that is where the issue ends. Interesting. I have to admit, I was a little surprised to learn of Arcanine being involved with Simon Saint, but I can't say it doesn't exactly make sense. It doesn't fit. So yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Robin and Batman #1. This was actually a really neat book. It's basically kind of it goes into Robin. Basically, it's about Robin's training and his thoughts on those early days before he actually became Robin. Suiting up to go on training missions, and we get him training against some goons robbing meat trucks. But Batman says that he's too focused on not paying attention to the whole picture. And explains that because of that he's no more field missions, training missions in the cave only. But and Alfred tries to make the case that maybe instead of Bruce trying to turn Dick into a younger version of him, just let Dick be Dick. And it turns out that initially Dick thought this whole thing was going to be a dream come true. Now it feels more like a nightmare, but it's better than the daytime when he starts to remember what happened to his parents, when he really starts to think about it. But he's always already started to think what he would be called when he becomes Batman's partner. You know, a Nighthawk or Nightwing. But he's working on designing a costume, and well, apparently Alfred was instructed to destroy the training costume he had, and so Dick makes an early Robin costume. Tails Batman for half an hour, follow him into the sewers. Batman, it turns out, realized that, well, he wasn't looking at the whole picture either. And just, you know, these guys were stealing meat. Why? But now they're going to the sewers with it, so. And Dick runs into none other than Killer Croc, who recognizes the outfit that Dick's wearing. Batman manages to take down Croc, but he does take a hit from Croc, giving him a couple broken ribs. They make their way out back to the cave, and Batman chides Robin for the ridiculous costume he made. But turns out Batman's been reading Dick's journal because he was going to present Dick with a more tactical version of the suit. And Dick storms off with Batman wondering what he did wrong, because he thought that the costume, and all of it was what Dick wanted. And the issue ends with Dick destroying his journal, and with Killer Croc having recognized the outfit that Dick was wearing, going back to the remains of Haley's Circus, reminiscing the Killer Croc tank and the family of trapeze artists, the Flying Graysons, and how the child of the family had a similar costume to the boy he met with Batman. And that is where the issue ends. I really like this. It's a really nice foray into who those early years of Dick Grayson's time with Batman, which is something that it gets touched upon occasionally. And yeah, there are elements that get retconned. They've been retconned over years just to kind of sync up with the ever-changing DC timeline. To kind of give you the impression that Dick Grayson was, 15 years ago Dick Grayson was Robin. Now he's Nightwing. But yeah, moving on to our last book for the moment, Batman the Imposter, Book 2. Where we left off, somebody was impersonating Batman and killing criminals. In this tale set in the early days of Batman's war on crime. Now, it should be noted also that this is most assuredly an Elseworlds take on the character, as Alfred. He has no Alfred. Alfred quit apparently at some point, and Gordon's close involvement with Batman led to Gordon being basically run out of Gotham completely. But book 1 ended with one of the officers investigating the Batman murders now, trying to figure out just who Batman is, and trying to things like discovering 25 motorcycles that have been stashed throughout Gotham. No serial numbers, Tire VIN numbers, however, seem to point to Wayne Enterprises. And so book one ended with with Detective Blair Wong working on a theory that maybe Batman has a wealthy backer that isn't Arnold Wesker, that isn't the head of Wesker Capital. Also, Batman has been seeing Leslie Tompkins every morning at dawn for therapy. But we get some flashbacks to Bruce's youth, dealing, and talking back then with Leslie. Fights in school, Alfred trying to not knowing what to do, and we learned that apparently Bruce was shipped off to a private school in Russia. But right up in the Gotham Times a few years later, Bruce Wayne simply disappeared. People weren't sure if he'd been killed, kidnapped, or run away. However, it was more focused on what would become the Wayne family fortune than what had happened to Bruce. But she's also patching up his injuries. He explains that he broke into Wesker Capital to use Wesker's security system. Had to deal with guards. Sadly, one of them he apparently did not hit hard enough because the guard came back for him. They duked it out, and eventually Bruce ended up in one of the residential portions of the building, where he ran into Arnold Wesker, who states that his father is one of the bad people, and thinks that Batman is the Angel of Death, and wants to know if the Angel of Death would kill his father for him. But Bruce doesn't linger much on his thoughts on Wesker, but explaining that he misses his parents and his father, and explaining that his father was not always kind. He adds that being rich, child of wealth, it doesn't make people like you. Leslie opines that maybe Bruce felt sorry for Arnold, though he didn't actually say that. But he's got his eyes on Arnold Wesker. But apparently, then skips back to the end of the first issue. Detective Wong tells Bruce what she's learned, and so, basically, hey, yeah, by all means, go to Wayne. I'll tell Wayne Enterprises to expect you, cooperate. She's surprised. He didn't say that expected a subpoena. No, just go, yeah. I'll tell them, I'll tell them to let you read over the books, all that. A shipping container, and he went over them too. But there's also news reports about the killings. Apparently, those being killed are murderers, dealers, traffickers. 10 dead so far, killed in Batman's name. But Bruce explains to Leslie that what he's doing, he thinks he's falling in love with Blair, and two, he does intend to use the fact that she works for the GCPD to look for connections between the victims. But they've got together for coffee, lunch. Apparently there was a missing shipping container with 25 motorcycles on it. It was 1 out of 22,000, so it wasn't thought of as a big deal. But Bruce and Blair begin to date. They talk about their scars while in bed together. After she goes to sleep, he finds that he does discover the connection. That apparently it all goes back to something that Batman and Jim Gordon had been working on. Explained that before the GCPD ousted Gordon, he and Batman had uncovered evidence that the three crime families in Gotham had 5 judges on their payroll. The evidence overturned dozens of their cases. However, the judges never went to prison because Gordon was working with the Batman. And but another victim is claimed. Detective Wong goes to talk to Wesker, wanting to see the footage that, though Wesker's quite mad now, especially that Batman was in his building. And it's apparently Wesker had a rather violent run with his son, which led to an injury of his hand. But apparently, Batman has managed to set up a hack so he can view the surveillance. But Wong explained when asked about it, when Wesker mentions the court order, she says, "No, I'm not going to show the GCPD. I mean, show me." And she sees the truck for Otis's rat catcher. And so they go to take down Otis Flanagan. As an accomplice to the imposter. While they're going, however, Batman's following another lead, but a rocket is fired at one of the cars. Batman has apparently found Flanagan, kicks Wong away, and uses enhanced interrogation techniques on Flanagan. Meanwhile, Wong decides that goes to evidence lockup and deal with a lot of impounded firearms. Explains to one of the other members of the task force that she's going to war, and he's welcome to join her. And that is where the issue ends. So I'm just saying, this is probably one of the best, soft AUs I've read for Batman. I really like it, and I hate that it's a 3-issue series. I really do, because I'm sure that if depending on how the 3rd issue ends, maybe I'll say, okay, fine, yeah, it's a 3, that's fine. But if it doesn't have an ending, I want to see more of that universe. But anyway, that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.